the conqueror writes history. They gain conquered and now you don't expect us to write this. They will praise by the negative things. And they have to do that because they have to justify their invention. We don't write our history. It has always been handed down to us orally by our elders. Of course, the white man came and he writes history. In fact, you don't know anything about any place until the white man gets there. Until the white man comes to any place, nothing lives. It's only when he comes and says, "Boof, I've discovered you, now you exist," which is ridiculous.
My daughter came home and she said, "Dad, a white person is teaching us about Black history." And I was like, yo, that's not right. And I'm like, if a white person is teaching about Black history, can a Black person teach about
white culture?
Caucasian history? You could, but it's gonna be some things that's left out. You know what I'm saying? Slavery.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching my video from. Welcome back to my YouTube space. Now, the video I'm going to react today is about the white history. And there's a lady here who have said something about white history, how they don't have history, and even the Black people history that we are using, it has been manipulated. Now, first of all, let's watch the clip. After watching this clip, we'll have a clear way to see what we are talking about here. Okay, let's watch it and come back again.
I have this conversation with people about history all the time, and I really think that people who live in America don't realize that America has been running the longest con in human history, and we, the descendants of Jacob, the real Jews, the Hebrew Israelites, have been the main characters in this script that's written by liars, cast by colonizers, and directed by demons in suits. Now, I'm not here to soothe your soul. I'm actually here to slice your slumber, because both Black folks and white folks have been bamboozled, hoodwinked, hypnotized, and deceived, and handed this script with missing pages. Now, I know that many people think they have a good grip on history, but you think you know your history, but do you really? Who told you that history? Who gave you that script? They gave Black people Black History Month because they cut us off from every other month of our ancestral timeline. And we don't know what we did, where we came from, or what was done to us. But here's the kicker. So-called white people who don't know their history either, they think they know, but they really don't. Not in America and not in Europe, because nobody was ever supposed to know the truth. See, if people knew the truth, they might start connecting the dots. And if you connect the dots, you'll see the cycles and you'll see the patterns. And if you see the cycles, you just might break it. And that's exactly what they don't want to happen. See, America runs like this movie script, a whole nation with amnesia, doing the same demonic things and deeds, not because they forgot they were wrong, but because they were taught to forget it. See, just like Trump trying to resurrect the Alien Enemies Act, the same act that locked up Japanese Americans in camps, they apologized for it once, and now they are what? They want to run it back like we ain't never seen this episode before. Because the game is simple. Forget history and you can repeat the atrocities without the burden of guilt. Let me say this again for the people in the back. If you erase memory, you erase your responsibility. And they got this down packed. See, this country doesn't teach history. It teaches mythology. It doesn't raise citizens. It scripts actors who know how to say liberty and justice, but don't know the blood behind the banner. Meanwhile, the real power behind the curtain, the ones that's pulling the strings in Hollywood, Wall Street, and the Vatican, have been fake Jews, Revelation 2:9ers. They told you who they were, the synagogue of Satan. They wear our identity like a costume while they rob, ruin, and rewrite reality. They got you hating truth tellers and loving liars. They got you saluting flags stained with blood and pledging allegiance to a beast. And let's not talk about Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam is not your uncle. See, he's a serial killer in a star-spangled mask. And you know that "I want you" poster? That was never a call for patriotism. It was a draft letter into a death cult. See, JFK told y'all, ask not what your country can do for you. No. Ask what this country has done for you. See, this isn't about hate, it's about healing. But the truth of the matter is you can't heal what you won't reveal. You want to stop history from repeating? Then stop letting liars tell the story. Your government has respect for you because they programmed you to forget. You want to break the system? You want to break it? Then break the spell. Wake up from the illusion. Reclaim your memory. Reclaim your relationship with the Most High, not through religions, but through righteous obedience and truth. See, the enemy is not afraid of religion. He created it. And what he fears is a remnant revival, a generation that remembers who they are, whose they are, and why they're here. So we gotta wake up, Judah. We have to wake up, Israel, and to the Gentiles listening. This truth ain't to shame you, it's to save you. Get you out of the lie so you can start stepping in the light, so you can stop trolling people's account and having arguments about your distorted history that you think you know, and to stop cherry picking and stop sipping the cherry Kool-Aid, because this isn't cherry, baby, it's blood.
Look, boys and girls, the only reason there are white people is because black people came here first, and they faded as they moved farther and farther north from the equator. Their melanin faded so that their skin, their hair, and their eyes got lighter. Their brains didn't get smaller, but their skin, their hair, and their eyes got lighter. That's the only reason you children can call yourselves white. And you aren't white. We are all shades of brown.
It's well known. It's a well-known issue that African Americans, black people in America, so-called, don't know their history, that they're cut off from the history of Africa, and even the history of everything that they did and everything that was done to them in America. That's why you have Black History Month, right? So this is something that everyone knows about. Everyone is aware of this issue. But the truth is that so-called white people don't know their history either. Their history in America or their history in Europe. Americans generally don't know history, which is incredibly useful when you consider the fact that history repeats itself. It's incredibly useful to keep the entire population in a state of amnesia, so that the whole country operates like the main character in that film Memento, you know? So you keep doing the same things that you've always done, and you never understand that you're actually doing the things that history has already judged to be crimes. You understand? You can do it as if there's no context, as if there's no history, as if there's no pattern. That's the whole point of approaching current events from an ahistorical perspective. You don't want anyone to see the pattern. You want to be able to do things that have already been condemned by history, but you want to keep doing them anyway, as if you don't know that they're contemptible. You don't know that they are condemned actions. Just like Donald Trump now invoking the Alien Enemies Act in reference to mass deportations and so on. Okay, this is the same act that put tens of thousands of Japanese Americans into internment camps in World War II, and for which the United States government eventually had to provide compensation and eventually had to even apologize for doing it, you see? It is something completely contemptible that you did, but you want to repeat it. So you forget your history. You forget history so you can repeat history without blame. Both so-called white people and so-called black people in America don't know their history. Both have been told lies about the past, about their respective pasts. And the only reason for that is for the purpose of maintaining the continuity of the contemptible reality of how that society operates. Amnesia and fictional histories serve as a preventative measure against change, against reform, against rehabilitation. America chooses to live like it's in the movie Groundhog Day. You know, you pretend that only today exists over and over and over again. And because of this forced amnesia, because of this deliberate suppression of historical awareness, the people in America don't even recognize when they're reliving their own past. They think that they're facing something new. They think that they're responding to some unprecedented crisis. every time. If you have no recollection where the road leads that you're on, then you'll keep walking it again and again, never realizing that it has already led you into disaster after disaster, dozens of times before. And this is exactly the condition that the rulers in America want, that the elite of America want, not just for black people, not just for so-called white people, but for everyone. Because the most effective way to ensure that a crime continues is to make sure that it is never recognized as a crime. To make sure that every time you commit that crime, it feels like the first time. You know? So when Trump talks about invoking the Alien Enemies Act, most Americans don't hear the echoes of history from that. They don't hear the voices of the Japanese Americans who were dragged from their homes and put behind barbed wire for years and years. They don't remember that that country had to apologize for doing exactly what they're about to do again. The American mind resets every morning, and that's the perfect condition for those in power. Because if people really understood history, then they would recognize that nothing about the American system is accidental. Every aspect of it, from its racial hierarchies to its economic disparities to its unjust foreign policies, is simply the continuation of an old script, a script that has played out again and again, always leading to oppression, always leading to exploitation, always leading to war, always leading to misery. And this is why in America history isn't taught. Fiction is taught, legends are taught, myths are taught, but not history. Because real history would be dangerous. Real history would break the illusion and potentially break the cycle. So-called white people in America know a version of history. They know a story. They know a narrative that has been carefully crafted to shape how they see themselves, how they see their ancestors, how they see their nations and their place in the world, and how they see everyone else. And this ignorance, this deliberate miseducation that they have imposed upon their own people allows the same crimes to continue. What most white people in America and Europe believe about their history is not history at all. It's mythology, designed to produce a specific kind of person, a person who does not feel guilty, a person who does not feel accountable, a person who does not feel responsible for ever changing anything because they don't think they're doing anything wrong. They're taught that their ancestors were pioneers, their ancestors were explorers and builders of civilization, that they've brought progress and democracy and enlightenment to the world. They hear about the Renaissance, they hear about the Industrial Revolution, they hear about the Age of Discovery, and so forth and so on. And not about enslavement, not about genocide, not about the theft, not about the destruction that their people are responsible for. They're not taught that their prosperity was built on unimaginable suffering. They're not taught that their systems of government, their financial empires, their very sense of national identity are all rooted in exploitation. They don't know about the crimes. They don't know the real legacy of their people. And so they don't change. They don't have to change because they don't even realize what they need to correct. You know, when we look at colonialism, for example, the history that's taught in Western schools is usually an abstraction. Colonization is framed as something that it just sort of happened a long time ago, you know, something that was maybe unfortunate, but it was inevitable, and ultimately it represented progress, and there were many beneficial things to come from it. Never mind the millions of Africans who died in the Congo Free State under King Leopold. Most white Americans have never heard of them. Never mind the Bengal famine of 1943 when millions of Indians starved to death due to British policies. They don't even know about it. The fact that the American police forces evolved from slave patrols, they don't know about that either. And they're not any more informed about the ongoing crimes, like the pillage of African resources today, the economic neocolonialism that keeps entire regions of the world impoverished, the exploitation of labor in the global south. These aren't relics of history. That's the present day reality of what your people are doing. But the story that white people are told does not include those realities, or else it packages those realities deceitfully and dishonestly. They packaged them dishonestly and deceitfully in the past just like they do now. The irony is that when they're confronted with the truth, many of these people will react defensively. You know, I didn't do that. That was in the past. Why should I feel guilty? But this reaction in and of itself reveals how little they're really understanding. It's not about guilt, it's about responsibility. You know, if a person inherits a stolen house, they may not have stolen it themselves, but they still live in it. And if they refuse to acknowledge where that house came from or how it came into their possession, if they insist that that house is rightfully theirs because the crime happened a long time ago, well, then they're complicit because the theft is ongoing. The crime never really stopped.
Welcome back. White history is black people history. The white people are using black people history, and that is one of the things we have been hearing. Come to think of it, the history of black people is trying to be whitewashed. Even right now, they are trying to whitewash our own history so that it can look as they are the one who have this history. Like, they're trying to whitewash the greatest inventors to ever live in the face of the earth, to make it look like they are the one who did it. And when we talk about white people are using black people history, or white people don't have history, it's usually expression of frustration with how history has been taught, represented, and controlled in places like USA. Because just to say the truth, black people, we never wrote our own history. Our history was told vocally, like verbal, like you did that, you went there. But when white people came, they came and wrote this history. And to be for sure, if someone is writing your history and there is some good place they need to write, they will skip or they will hide. So the black history that we are given, some pages are not there. Some pages or the history has been manipulated. Come to think of it, we never knew about the black Jesus. We never knew about the real Jews. We never knew about the real Israelites of the Bible are black people. We never knew about black people are the first people in the face of the earth. But right now things are being unfolded and we are knowing it. But they have been trying so hard to manipulate that, to make us think that God is white or Jesus is white, to make us think that the religion, the true religion is their religion. But we as black people, as the first people at the face of the earth, we were the first one to invent religion, education, and everything. So when we talk about the true religion, when we talk about who invented, we will talk about black people. But they have tried so hard to manipulate this history and to make sure the history is theirs. And sometimes when I sit down, I wonder, white people came in Africa. They colonized us. And the only way they could colonize us is to manipulate us. One thing for sure they do away with our religion. And it is said that the religion of black people, we could even talk to the dead. Black people could even teleport. And these spirits, they call it evil spirits. And they told us, no, this one yours is for Satan. Take this. And they came and conquered. You hear that? So white people history is depending on black people history. And in many schools and media, history is taught primarily for the European perspective, meaning it centers on white European or American figures and achievements. This often ignores, downplays, or erases of history and contribution of black people, indigenous people, and other non-white communities. Some people feel like white individuals or institutions take part in black culture, like music, fashion, language, and they use them without giving proper credit or understanding the roots, which feel like using black history and culture without respecting it. Now, come to think of it, black people are like the one who invented music because they are the true legends of music. And the pop, the R&B, and everything, all is being influenced by black people. Now, the white people, they copy-paste this and make it like it's theirs. Without even giving credit, but we know for sure that they have taken it from black culture. That shows you that they do not have music, history, culture. So they are using ours. Now, some cases, achievement of black individuals have been credited to white people, or their stories were left out of mainstream history books. And this adds to the feeling that white people are using black history. When we talk about white people erasing our history or the achievement of great black people, but we black people, whenever we are there at school, we always learn about them. We read about Christopher Columbus. We read about, great white people. So because the books we are reading, they were written by the whites. They were brought to us. And they will always center to favor them. And the children that we are growing, we have always been growing, knew that white people are the greatest people to ever lived, because they are the one who have written this history. And when you talk about Christopher Columbus, the discovering of America, because Columbus heroically discovered the New World in 1492. But the reality, Columbus landed in the Caribbean, never on the mainland US. He also enslaved indigenous people and was responsible for mass death and violence. Why does this matter? The discovery narrative ignores the existence of millions of indigenous people who were already here in America and justify colonization. They will try to say when Columbus went to Jamaica, he didn't find the Arawak community. They will try to hide that America did not have people when Columbus discovered it, because the people who are living there never wrote that history. They never wrote any history. So Columbus take it an advantage. Another example, the Tulsa Race Massacre in 1921. What was taught or not taught, for a long time, this event wasn't taught in most American schools at all. But the reality, a white mob attacked and destroyed a wealthy black neighborhood in Tulsa, Oklahoma, known as Black Wall Street, killing hundreds and leaving thousands homeless. This matters because erasing this history hides the scale of radical violence and black success, and the fact that black communities thrived despite systematic oppression. So they will have to be asked question. They thrived. You killed a lot of them and left them homeless, but they are here, making it big. This shows how great black people are. But they have erased this history. It's not being taught in schools. Not being taught in schools. The whitewashing of Martin Luther King Jr. What's often taught, MLK is portrayed as a peaceful, non-threatening figure who just wanted everyone to get along. Reality is that the king was radical of his time. He spoke out against capitalism, the Vietnam War, and systematic racism. He was deeply unpopular with white Americans while he was alive. That matters because sanitizing his legacy make people ignore how bold and disruptive his activism really was. That's for sure. Sanitizing Martin Luther King, they are trying to hide that he was bold and he was a threat to the white America. So the history of black people is being manipulated. They are living on our history, but they are manipulating our history. The great things that we did, the colonization that they did, they are trying to either they justify it or they erase it if it's that bad. So what I have to say is another example. During apartheid in South Africa, the government controlled the narrative, saying it was protecting different cultures and that segregation was natural and good. But the truth is, it was a brutal system of racial oppression that benefited white South Africans and violently suppressed black South Africans. It matters because only after apartheid ended in 1990s did the full truth start being widely accepted. Okay? Now, another thing here. Great or famous ancient Egypt medical scientist Imhotep lived in 2650 to 600 BCE. He was an architect, priest, physician, and a polymath, a great one. But his history was erased, replaced by an ancient Greek. So we have to know that white people history is always to oppress black people, to make us feel as inferior, to make us feel that we cannot amount to anything. And that's what they're presenting us to schools. That's what they're presenting us. So we as black people, we are growing knowing that we are inferior, we are like this, but no, hell no. There's a lot of videos professors have made out there talking about the white history, how they don't have history, and etc., etc. So we need to, black people, we need to understand our own history and protect it at all cost. Tell me what you think on the comment section. Until next episode, peace out.